They're superheroes, but do they have any musical talent? This week on the Nerd Byword, we'll find out. The Byword starts now. Ladies and gentlemen, nerds, welcome to a brand new episode of the Nerd Byword podcast, episode 145. I am Dave, here with my buddy Kris, and this week we are talking musical talents in the superhero character community. Which superhero characters would make great band members, and if they were in a band, what instrument would they play? Each of us is going to make a band comprised completely from comic book characters. But before we get to that particular fun little event, it is first time for
Nerd News!
Alright, Kris, what's new?
Unfortunately, Dave, I have sad tidings today, but I feel that it is apropos for our show because we have lost a nerd icon. Lance Reddick passed away from natural causes at the age of 60. Many fans know him from the John Wick franchise, from the Destiny video game series in which he was a voice actor, very beloved by that community, was recently cast as Zeus in the upcoming Percy Jackson Disney Plus series, which I thought was absolutely perfect. One of the most underrated character actors, voice actors, in my opinion, in Hollywood, in the game. So really, really tough loss here. And you and I were talking off show in our text message. He's also one of the lead characters in one of the truly underrated sci-fi shows of the past decade or so, if you will. And we're not talking Firefly and all these, like, you know, people say Firefly is so underrated or this is underrated, but a lot of people talk about it. Okay. Not enough people, Dave, are talking about Fringe. And it is truly leaning into the weird aspects of sci-fi, and it was just so masterfully done. I mean, you had Leonard Nimoy there, you had Joshua Jackson. The whole cast was just wonderful. And Lance Reddick is like the director. It's been a good time since I've watched it. I watched it live every week, and it was just such appointment television for me, being a nerd. And so losing Lance Reddick is truly a deep cut here to the nerd world, and he will sorely be missed. And thoughts and prayers and vibes to his wife and his family, and we will truly miss him.
Yeah, it's interesting how Reddick's passing actually caused us to have a conversation, I think for the first time, about Fringe, which stands as one of my all-time favorite shows. I started watching it because it was giving off this sort of X-Files-y vibe, and I was a really big X-Files fan, so, FBI investigating weird, stuff. I was there for that. But then it kind of developed into its very own unique thing, and everybody on that show was just, firing on all cylinders, including Lance Reddick. So it was just a really, really good show. I agree. Not enough people still talk about Fringe. We might have to do like a Fringy episode or something, Kris. I've sung the praises of a particular new video game property for a while now too, and that's the Horizon games Zero Dawn and Forbidden West. I know that those games keep getting overshadowed by other releases that come out around the same time. For the first one, it was Breath of the Wild. I think the two games released like within a couple of weeks of each other. And then for the most recent one, it was Elden Ring that kind of overshadowed it. But the Horizon games are super special to me and probably some of my favorite open world games. And Reddick played a role in those as well. I think he did mocap work. His likeness was in there, and he did the voice acting for a character called Silence. And his performance in there is just, it really elevated the game's story, which is, really sci-fi. So yeah, losing Reddick is a big, big loss to the nerd world for sure.
But I do want to say that his wife thanked fans for their support and their messages, and she is asking for donations to be made in his name to momcares.org, which is a nonprofit organization serving mothers and families in Baltimore, which is Reddick's hometown. So if you feel so inclined, and if you have some disposable income, we would ask that you would also make donations for a great cause in the Baltimore area there. Dave, one of my newfound beloved characters is making headlines.
Yeah, so I think it's no secret to say that the current run on Nightwing over at DC Comics has been really, really interesting. The writing has been really strong. There's a lot of moves happening and trying to elevate the character kind of back to a spot of prominence, considering Dick Grayson is a very, very important character in the history of comic books. I've applauded that. But I think the thing that really grabs me the most about the book, and has for a while, is Bruno Redondo, whose art on the book is just absolutely gorgeous. And what makes Redondo really interesting to me too is that he's always interested in experimenting. And so Nightwing number 87, I believe, the entire book was one continuous panel. Which was so very cool and so unique and experimental. I don't think I had seen that done before, and really, really enjoyed that way of trying to tell a story, in comic book form. And then they just announced that Nightwing number 105 is going to be drawn from a first-person perspective from Dick Grayson. So it's like FPS style, basically, where the reader is going to be looking through the eyes of Dick Grayson for the entirety of the issue. And I think that is really, really cool as well. I'm not saying that that hasn't been done before. I think people have totally experimented with like first-person perspectives in comic books, but I don't think I've seen a whole issue done like that. And I'm really, really excited to see, even already based on the cover that was released and a couple of pages, how that is going to shake out as far as how it influences the storytelling and the pacing, to see everything through Dick Grayson's eyes. So Nightwing is really just a book to keep an eye on right now, because there's always something neat coming down the pipeline in that book.
Yeah, I'm very, very excited about this. And doggone it, I've just got so much on my content plate. We were talking about Fringe a moment ago, and I really want to rewatch it. For those of you that are curious, Dave and I did some research. It is currently streaming on HBO Max, and you can also watch it on Prime Video with ads. I forget what they call it now. Is it Tubi or something? Not Tubi. It's the Freevee something. You can watch it on Prime for free. You just have to watch ads, and it's also on HBO Max. So I really want to watch that. But then I'm also in the midst of this Buffy first time watch. So like that's taking up a good deal of time. I've got new video games. The new wrestling game is coming out. I'm behind on comics, trying to get caught up on the Armageddon game and TMNT. And then, Marvel Unlimited and DC Universe Infinite, I'm tag teaming back and forth with them as well. It's just all over the place. But Nightwing may have skyrocketed up to like the top spot now with this, because I'm so excited to see this. I'm hilariously behind. I'm at the point where Sam Humphries took over, and I think I'm in like the 30s, maybe the 40s when it comes to issues. And you say, Chris, we'll just jump to when Taylor came onto the book. You'll be fine. My moral compass won't let me do that. I have to read it all. I have to be a completionist like that. I'm lucky in that my morality code will let me start with Rebirth and not read the older stuff. I usually, when I do a deep dive on a character, it's literally everything. So yeah, I really desperately have to get caught up, because I'm dying to get to the Taylor era. More on Tom Taylor in Nerd Commendations, but I'm really excited about this book, and I love everything about this character, man.
Here, totally agreed. All right, there you have it. That's it for Nerd News. Stick around. After a quick break, we'll be back with this week's Big Talk, when we talk musicians that are also comic book characters. What? Ladies and gentlemen, nerds, we are back, and it is time for this week's And in this week's Big Talk, Kris and I, on suggestion of Kris, who is just a fountain of weird ideas here lately, decided to talk about building a band made up of comic book characters. Who would be playing which role in the band? What, I don't even know what the band name might be. The superheroes? I'm not sure. But we're going to go ahead and try to build a band. We're going to take turns adding somebody to each of our bands who we want to see in a particular role, and we'll see how the whole band shakes out. So, Kris, first things first. Who's your lead singer?
Okay, so just to give you guys a quick rundown as we go here, it's kind of crazy how inspiration comes to me. It's like a creative muse. I was washing dishes yesterday morning, and Dave said, "What are we doing for tomorrow's recording?" And so I was jamming out in my headphones because that's the only way that I can get chores done is if I have my headphones in and I'm jamming out. So I just said, "Let's make a band," and he responded with 3 question marks. And so I was just like, how we did that mission to space? Let's just make a band. If we were to make a nerd band of nerd-centric characters, what were we going to do? So I came up with the roles. We would need lead vocals, a guitarist, a bassist, drummer, and then a manager, because that's always fun. So my lead vocalist, my initial thought was something along the lines of what you did for your lead vocalist. But on the Marvel side of it, the equivalent would be Banshee, Sean Cassidy from the X-Men, who, when you think of a loud, shrieking voice, rock music lends itself easily to Banshee. But I kind of went the other way on that one. When I think of like a lead vocalist in a rock band, I think that they are emblematic of the group. They are like the spokesperson, the figurehead, if you will. They are the ambassador. They're the ones that get all the accolades and the attention. Look at some of the lead vocalists, throughout rock history. Freddie Mercury. When you think of Queen, you think of Freddie Mercury. It's your first association. When you think of Panic at the Disco, Brendan Urie is the first one that comes to mind. When you think of The Doors, you think of Jim Morrison.
For a while, he was the only member, too.
So I wanted my lead vocalist to be someone who grabs attention, can own the conversation, own the show, and you'd be hard-pressed to find a character who has leading lady vibes like that than Storm, Aurora Monroe. And so I want her to be the face of my franchise. I think just that name being attached alone is already going to gain some ears and some attention. And I fully believe that she's got the pipes to back it up. And then just think about like the aesthetics that you would have at one of those concerts. If she has control over the weather, the atmosphere that she, pun fully intended, that she could create at one of these concerts, especially if she's playing at like the Red Rocks Amphitheater or something like that, or playing like Central Park or one of these big open air stadiums, that would be really, really cool. So Storm is my leading lady in so many aspects of my life, and including my rock band.
An interesting choice for sure. Has there ever been any like scenes or anything in the comic book of her like being having singing inclinations or anything? Like I said before many times, yes. I'm not that familiar with the whole X-Men franchise.
So there's just a slice of life kind of page or two on Krakoa, and I believe and X fans correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it's Jean Grey and Storm duetting on the same microphone Unbreak My Heart by Tony Braxton. And if you can sing that song, you can sing anything. So, yeah. So that also was at the forefront of my mind when I made this pick as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. I totally can see that then. And it's a very interesting choice, Kris.
All right. So, Dave, I called your lead vocalist from a mile away. Spot on.
Well, I don't know what to tell you. I'm nothing if not consistent, right? So for me, lead vocalist should absolutely be Black Canary. It's not just that she has powers that are related to her vocal cords with the canary cry and all that, but she's actually been depicted multiple times in multiple forms of media as a singer. There's a fairly memorable run, I believe, during the New 52, where she's actually touring with a band and is the lead singer. The DC Bombshells universe. She that takes place sort of in the 30s and 40s. She is also depicted as a singer, and then of course we have the Birds of Prey movie where she was once again depicted as a singer. So there's a long history now in more modern media of leaning into the vocal stylings of Black Canary. So I think that putting her in lead vocals makes sense. There's also, the factor that oftentimes in many bands, the lead vocalist is also sort of the face of the band. And the leader. And that makes sense for Black Canary. She's been in sort of leadershipy positions very often. She's a team player who knows how to get the most out of the people on her team. So she's just in pretty much every facet a natural to be in the lead for a band like this.
Now listen, just because it was a clear number one pick for you does not mean I'm denigrating it in any form or fashion. Simply because the number one reason you posited an idea of quote unquote fixing Harley, the emancipation of the birds, whatever that subtitle is, my God, but the Birds of Prey movie, you were like, hey, could we fix this movie? Because I was like, nope, Journey Smollett is in it. And she is perfect as Black Canary. Look no further for a perfect encapsulation of a lead singer. I mean, it's literally right there. So I have no bones to pick about that. Listen, if Michael Jordan, if Patrick Mahomes are available, if you'll afford me a sports reference on a very non-sports podcast, if they're available, you're going to pick them number one.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it makes perfect sense, at least to me, as the consummate DC fan. So what can I say? Let's move on to guitarist. Now, this made perfect sense to me once I saw your pick. Explain yourself, Kris.
Dude, this is a no shade to Storm. This was my favorite pick that I made. I was looking for a lead guitarist, and I was like, I don't know why it took me more than 0.25 seconds. My guitarist is Spider-Punk. I mean, like, it's perfect. It's I mean, like, what more can you say about it? And it's such a fun character. So for those of you who may not be familiar, this is an alt universe Spider character, foul-mouthed teenager Hobie Brown. He's Spider-Punk. He's a punk rock inspired character. You got a Black Spider character who loves punk rock. I mean, it's so cool. It's so imaginative. It's so fun. I don't remember if I have nerd commended it before, but I nerd commend it now. The most recent little mini series by one of our all-time faves, Cody Ziegler, was great. The art was fun and expressive and indicative of that punk rock aesthetic. And so there's one cover where you have like the traditional like spider signal in the background, and then he's doing this leaping guitar move with the cord attached. It's so great. I love Hobie Brown as a character. I'm super stoked to see him in the Spider-Verse, Across the Spider-Verse coming up, voiced by Daniel Kaluuya. I'm like, come on. Just come on. I could not be more geeked about this movie coming up. But I mean, like, when you're talking about a lead guitarist, you'd be hard-pressed to find a better pick in the nerd world than Spider-Punk.
See, I'm not that familiar with Spider-Punk, just like very peripherally. But the way you describe it, it makes absolutely perfect sense for the character to be, lead guitarist for a band like this. And I'm just psyched for this pick. This is much, much cooler than I thought. And now I really want to read some Spider-Punk. So it might be time for me to get off my keister and check that character out a little bit more.
If I remember correctly, it's a 5-issue mini with Cody Ziegler, who wrote that beloved issue of Aunt May and Doc Ock. So you know you're going to love it. He's also writing the new Miles book, which is great as well.
Very cool, man. Very cool.
Dave, I thought this was a typo, but when it comes to Flash-centric characters, I'm almost agnostic at this point because you run real fast, and that's the extent of what I know.
Okay, so let's talk about a character that might seem like a weird pick on the surface, but I think totally works in the context of our little band here. So Bart Allen is known as the superhero Impulse. He is, I believe, the grandson of Barry Allen. He comes from the future and then settles sort of in present day and interacts with all the other speedsters. He is the poster child for a kid that cannot sit still and has to run his mouth nonstop. I mean, it's the perfect sort of speedster characterization. He's had some really cool runs. He actually was the Flash himself for a little while. So, he's a very high energy teenager. He memorably, actually, in his original run of his own series, Impulse, learned to play electric guitar, so there's actually some precedent for this. But the thing that I found really interesting about the character, and I think makes him work really well as a lead guitarist, is that he has sort of mastered the ability to read really, really fast using his speedster abilities and retain all the information he takes in. In a sort of early 2000s run of Teen Titans, he actually becomes Kid Flash for a little while, and he starts by reading an entire library just to make sure that he has like the knowledge to do the job right. So if you're looking for somebody who can learn to play various styles and songs really fast, this is your guy. I mean, he will learn what he needs to learn very, very quickly. On top of that, can you imagine the guitar solos if you have a speedster on the guitar? There'd be some sick licks going on there. So for me, lead guitarist has got to be Bart Allen Impulse.
I'm always here for a motor mouth smart aleck character, so I may have to investigate this one further. And you absolutely need like high energy from a lead guitarist, so that absolutely tracks.
All right, Chris. So that brings us to bass guitar. What do you got?
Listen, I wanted this character to be on my band. It was just a matter of finding the right role for them. It's funny because like the inside joke about rock bands is like the bassist is the one that you need to watch. Like they're the actual cool one. They bring the vibes. And so I tossed up a couple of characters. I almost went Gambit because Gambit is like the cool guy in Marvel Comics and the X-Men. But I got to have Misty Knight in my band. And I think like there's just so much I love about this character. I think you'd be hard-pressed to find a more underrated and underappreciated character in comics. Like, why doesn't she have a solo series? Like, a badass cop with a metallic arm? Like, come on. Like, there's just so much I love about Misty Knight. And I think she would bring those vibes as, like, the muscle of the band and like the bassist, and like you don't mess with this person, and she brings those vibes. Like it's a good time when Misty Knight shows up in the comic book. She shows up in the previously mentioned Miles Morales series that Cody Ziegler's writing right now, and it's just a really fun team up. So I love Misty Knight. While we're sitting here casting our hopes and dreams about who's going to show back up from the Netflix universe in the Disney Plus, series. Bring me Simone Missick back, please and thank you. So I love Misty Knight, and she is my bassist.
Cool pick. Misty Knight is such a neat character. Picturing her, jamming out on bass, that just makes my heart sing, man. So that's a fantastic.
Just a cybernetic. I don't know if it's cybernetic. I can't remember. Cybernetic or at least a metallic arm, like on playing a bass. Just that image is cool to me.
Yeah, it's very, very cool image. Also makes you wonder if there's some special features that can be added to that arm to just really make her shred. Yeah.
All right. Okay. So to my great shame, this is a character that so many people rant and rave about, the movie, the comic book, the video game, and I know absolutely nothing about it other than Michael Cera, whom I love, was in the movie.
and is decent casting, I'll freely admit. But yeah, I mean, if you think comic book and bass guitar, you got to think Scott Pilgrim. So I've read like the first volume, and I'm sort of peripherally familiar with the character. But just it was like the first thing that jumped into my mind as soon as as I saw bass guitar. I was like, that's got to be Scott Pilgrim. Just apparently really, really, awkward, lady-focused kind of guy. Lasers in on wanting to get the girl, but at the same time still can shred on a guitar. So that's I think fair for a bass guitarist. They kind of stand in the shadow, generally speaking, of the lead guitarist. But they're there still to pick off the lady. So I think Scott Pilgrim is the right guy for the job.
And let's just serve as a reminder that I absolutely need to visit this character.
Yeah, I think there are so many cool things out there that even you and I, as many comic books as we read, still need to dive deeper into. Like I said, I've only read the first volume, and I need to get back to it. And there's 6, so I have to still read the other 5. All right, so that brings us now to drums, and this made me laugh out loud when I saw it. Like I was almost spit out my breakfast. So what have you got there on drums?
This was the most fun pick, and oddly enough, it was the first one that came to mind. I think, like when I thought up this episode, I think there was like a drum solo going on when I was texting you. But I'm putting Benjamin J. Grimm on drums. I want the thing on drums. It just, the aesthetic of seeing this mountain of a man on the drums, just rocking out, pun fully, wholeheartedly, with my whole chest intended. I think it's just perfect. Also, like, I just love the thing. Like, the rest of the Fantastic Four is kind of hit or miss for me. Like, I should be reading more Fantastic Four comics, because every time Ben Grimm shows up in like a supporting role in another book, I'm like, God, I love that guy. There's a great one of my favorite artists that I found on Twitter was Sebastian Pires. He's located in Argentina. He does some stuff for Dynamite, I believe, but he did he did a piece where has Ben Grimm and Raphael from the Ninja Turtles in those detective style coats. And they're like side by side. So I just love Ben Grimm, and I should probably be reading more Fantastic Four, but I think he's just perfect as the drummer. I also have one of my favorite t-shirts that I had in high school and college was that print of them playing the poker game, and Ben Grimm is like front and center. So I'm just like, yeah, that could easily put a drum set in front of him. It's the same vibes.
So what you're saying is that he would rock in that position?
See, I laid it right there for you.
I'll see myself out now. I'm sorry. Yeah, that I actually can kind of see this as odd as that sounds. Like I'm totally here for Ben Grimm just banging those sticks. So let's do that. I like it.
Now, Dave, your drummer pick is like spot on. This is your Spider-Punk pick, if you will.
Yeah, it's the one that was most logical, at least to me. And I had to, definitely take a step back to make sure I don't try to put Mary Jane on lead vocals or something. But drums obviously should be Gwen Stacy. Now we're talking about Spider-Gwen here, of course, who in that particular parallel universe actually is in a band with Mary Jane Watson, and Gwen Stacy plays the drums, and I think Mary Jane plays lead guitar and does lead vocals. So I mean, it's just like right there. It was easy pickings. Who better than a character that is known for playing the drums to put on the drums for our sort of multiversal comic book character bands here? So Gwen Stacy was my obvious pick here.
One of my favorite, and there's so many, it's my favorite movie of all time, my favorite superhero movie, my favorite Spider-Man movie. There's so much to love, but I love that that intro that she gets where she goes immediately from playing drums and then it transitions like into the whole Peter Parker, the lizard thing. It's just such a wild animation, and it works so well. And then like her intro when she comes into the forest and they're playing that hard rock music, it's so great as well.
Yeah, I'm generally speaking just a real big fan of the character. I think she's just very, very neat. initially my instinct was, oh, here's this weird variant, and it's one hit wonder kind of thing. But the writing on the character has been pretty strong across the board in the comic books, and then her inclusion, obviously, in the Spider-Verse movie. She just really sings as a character now, pun fully intended. So yeah, I'm a big Spider-Gwen, Ghost Spider, I think they're calling her these days, but I just can't quite get myself to use that.
Yeah,
I'm a pretty big Spider-Gwen fan.
Stop trying to make Ghost Spider work.
It's not.
And it's funny because my brain kind of went all over the place as you were giving your reasoning behind it. Number one, it'd be funny if like 616, still dead to my knowledge, Gwen with her go-go boots was the drummer. That's a funny visual. But listen, follow me on this rabbit hole. Dave, there's another Gwen Stacy that you and I wholeheartedly love. And can you imagine her playing drums? And we're talking,
oh my
of course,
God,
about ultimate.
Oh.
Ultimate. Get your bleep button ready. Get your pen out. Ultimate, I will cut a bitch, Gwen Stacy on the drums.
Yes, she would too. Holy crap, she would. It doesn't hurt that she actually eventually comes back as Carnage, so she could have totally cut, several, in fact.
Her drumsticks probably double as, like, she probably hits a button on the drumsticks and, like, knives come out of it. I totally would believe that.
Yeah, I would too. All right, so that brings us to the manager, the one who has to, find the gigs and make sure the band rakes in the moolah. And who is the natural person for your band to do this, Chris?
I mean, it's Emma Frost. It's the queen of capitalism. I have my druthers about living in a capitalistic society and the separation of wealth, but the one who benefits from that the most and does it so well and works the game is Emma Frost. She's a self-made woman. Yes, she came from privilege, but she said screw that to her abusive and toxic family and then made that money on her own. Now, how much did she actually make on her own, being the master telepath that she is? We don't need to talk about that. But I can't think of a better person to be like the go-to person for a rock band than Emma Frost. Like she can carry all of that stuff, everything that she does with the Hellfire Trading Company, the Hellfire Club back in the day. I mean, she seems like just the perfect fit for a manager in that role, and she can handle that responsibility. And I just think it's a perfect pick for me. I also just love the character, and I just want her on my team all the time.
Yeah, I think this makes perfect sense. She's sort of known, even I know this, with, like business savvy and being able to, get her way with people. So I think she's really a perfect manager to help push this band forward. Absolutely.
All right, Dave, even the little bit that you have told me about this character in recent weeks made me giggle when I saw them as your manager.
Yeah. So if I think of somebody who's a total, like, money hungry go-getter,
are you sure this isn't? Are you sure that isn't the groupie role? We didn't put a groupie role or a roadie on here.
No. This is a person who's willing to put himself out there. I mean, this is a guy who, in the series The 52, when he died, there were sponsorship stickers all over his casket. Okay, he faked his death, and his casket was sponsored. Okay, so you think the suit he ran around in for a while that had sponsorship on it, like somebody's NASCAR suit, was hilarious enough. His casket had sponsorship. If there's anybody who's going to find gigs for this band and make the money, it's got to be Booster Gold, the absolute fame and glory hungry dude from the future who is totally going to use his future knowledge to find all the best venues to play a concert. He's absolutely the perfect manager.
I'm so excited about this. And just that idea of the image of the casket makes me want to check that series out by itself.
52 is, absolutely fantastic. It's just a great, great, great series. And, if you've never read it, it's totally worth it. It does so many cool things with so many obscure characters. I think you'd really enjoy it. All right. So, for giggles, Kris talked me into discussing perhaps some of our favorite bands as sort of an addendum to this little discussion of building our bands. I know my musical tastes are odd for a person my age and persuasion, so I'm not always thrilled to talk about my musical tastes, but I'm totally thrilled to talk about Kris's musical tastes. So, Kris, what's one of your favorite bands?
Some people pay heavy credence to horoscopes, which I do. Some people pay heavy credence to personality assessments, which I do. Another one of those is your playlist. What's on your playlist? So I was finally, after a decade plus of friendship, I was finally able to get that out of Dave, and he made it like it was this big thing that he was nervous about. But I wholeheartedly co-sign his playlist. So my top three picks, if we're going like rock bands, the ones that are on constant repeat for me are the Black Keys. I love blues and I love bluesy rock. And I think that they combine those two things so well. It's atmospheric and it's just always good for easy listening. They're at the top of my playlist when I have to like grade papers or I've got a bunch of busy work that I've got to complete. My second pick is the Killers. Like, I'm just like a quirky guy. I'm weird. I'm off kilter. I think up random episode ideas while I'm washing dishes. So the Killers are kind of emblematic for me of they're like off the beaten path. They're not your standard rock band. And that synth rock, like that callback to the 80s kind of vibe is so fun to me. Also, Hot Fuss was like the soundtrack of my high school years. Mr. Brightside, unfortunately or fortunately, was my anthem. Like, I always try to find like the worst things in the world could be going on, and my naivete is undefeated. So I love the Killers. Somebody told me will forever get me hyped. When you were young, when that when that album came out, and also another reason for this game, I was getting nostalgic. Dave, I don't know, did you ever play Rock Band back in the day? Oh my god, it was all I did in college. So Rock Band, Guitar Hero was fun, but it was the most communal thing that I've ever done with my closest friends. Is we went on world tour. Some people pulled all-nighters in college, doing a keg stand, blacking out, getting drunk, experimenting with recreational drug use. I had my closest friends, and we played through the night Rock Band. We would play 86 song set lists, and that's what we did. And when Rock Band added some Killers, that was my happy place. And then my third and final pick is a pivotal band, and some people like to criticize them because Meg White is not the best drummer, not the most innovative drummer in the world. Also, the weird dynamic of being in a band with your ex-wife. I don't care. I love the White Stripes. I love Jack White. I think he's a visionary. I think he's one of those singular individuals in music, like Prince, like Beyonce, that just transcend genre. And they're so creative and they're so innovative and cool. I love the White Stripes. I mean, has Seven Nation Army been played to death in arenas and pep rallies and basketball games? Yes, it has. Does it still slap? Yes, it does. One of the coolest music videos in Seven Nation Army. But I also love like that some of their music is so different and it's so quirky and weird. Go crazy. I mean, Icky Thump is a weird song, but it's so biting, like politically and social commentary wise. Get Behind Me, Satan is such a fun one. Like I said, they blend genres. They have that bluesy rock, which is automatically going to launch them into my playlist if you get blues in there. I'm an old soul in a lot of respects. Almost even some gospel feels to some of his stuff. But yeah, those are my top three picks. And Dave, you were super anxious about sharing yours, but this is a safe space and I accept you.
Okay, well, if you're so accepting of my general weirdness, just be glad I didn't go full out here. First on my list is probably Journey. I'm a big fan of the whole '80s arena rock scene.
Yes,
Even hair metal and all that. There's a
love it,
hefty dose of
love it.
nostalgia, obviously. Since I was a little kid during that time, and a lot of that music is sort of the soundtrack of my childhood. But Journey in particular just kind of put his hooks in me. I think a lot of that has to do with obviously Steve Perry's vocals. I still think he's easily top three greatest rock vocalists of all time. And I just can listen to him do anything. In fact, he actually recently, a couple of years ago or so, came out with a new album actually. And there's some good stuff in there. Obviously, he's older and more mellow, but his voice is still really incredible. So Journey is right up there for me. It's just an absolutely fantastic '80s band.
Quick interjection. The popular one is "Don't Stop Believin'." That one withheld. What's your favorite Journey song?
If you withhold "Don't Stop Believing," there's actually a little track. I think it was a B-side called "The Party Is Over." Hopelessly in Love. There's something about there's something about the guitar on that I really really appreciate, and it's very high energy, despite the fact that it's about a breakup. So it's not like a revenge breakup song or something, but it's still very high energy, even though it's talking about the disintegration of a relationship. And I think that juxtaposition works really really well. It's probably one of my top 5 most played songs from my Journey collection.
See, I'm a sap like that, so I always go Faithfully. And continuing,
it's my 2-year-old's favorite song too from Journey, so he keeps asking for it.
God, you better don't tempt me, because I'm gonna start singing right now. And then I'm kind of hit or miss on the recent Tron movie that they made, but when they started with Separate Ways, similar to the vibe that you were talking about in that song, of like, listen, I know we're broken up, but like, if that dude does anything sideways, it's on. I love that song, and that synthesizer right at the beginning to open that. I'm like, it's so great.
So my second band in my top 3 is probably going to feel odd, for people who've been listening to the pod for a long time. But my second favorite band is Fall Out Boy. I have a mad love for this band, and I actually discovered them when I was in college with their first sort of mainstream big album, From Under the Cork Tree. And I bought that CD and popped it in my car, and I probably just I had an hour commute to college at the time. I was not living on campus, and so I drove every day an hour to campus and then an hour back. So I was 2 hours in the car, and I just slapped this album in, and I basically just listened to it straight through for the entire drive there and back. It's just, there is not a single bad track on that entire album. I don't care what anybody says, that entire album slaps. And I have just been following them ever since. Every time something new comes out, I'm there for it. And some albums hit better with me than others, but they've never let me down. There's always, at least on every album, 4 or 5 really, really good songs that really speak to me. They're just right up there. It's one of my favorites.
Every album, and I think a lot of people are like, "Oh, that's a Gush pick. Of course you'd pick them." But for me, listen, you want to make jokes about it? I feel the same way about Nickelback. It became this in joke to "Oh, Nickelback sucks." I'm like, no, they don't. I never understood that vibe, and I never understood people giving Fall Out Boy a hard time. Every single album that they've released has one song that you are guaranteed to sing with your full chest.
Absolutely. And even when you get into this, or maybe even especially when you get into the songs that are not released to the radio, you run into songs that are just really, really good. Young Volcanoes is really good. I love that one. And I know that one wasn't released as a single, and it's still just every time I listen to it, it just gets under my skin. I really like that song. So, also it doesn't hurt that the lead singer did the music for Spidey and His Amazing Friends, right? So there's he performed and composed several songs for that cartoon, and that does not hurt because they're pretty awesome actually. So that's a really cool vibe for that cartoon to have as well. And then last is a weird one from the 90s.
Deep cut,
yeah.
but I love it.
I have several of those, bands that had like one album that really spoke to me, and then they either disappeared or they had a lackluster follow-up. You know who I had to think of when we're talking about this was Alien Ant Farm. Alien Ant Farm.
Oh my god, one of the best covers ever.
Yes, but you know what's totally underappreciated, besides their smooth criminal cover, is that entire album anthology is absolutely incredible. Like there is not a bad track on that whole record. It's absolutely incredible. But then their second album came out and it just did not connect with me at all. I don't know what they did with like their musical style. They went in a different direction. But man, that one album is still in my rotation. I still listen to that constantly. But the one I ended up putting up on the list is New Radicals, who are kind of a one-hit wonder with the song called You Get What You Give. And I think the lead singer, who was sort of also a music producer, decided he didn't want to be in a one-hit wonder band and just quit after that first album. But when you sit down and really just like listen to every song on there, it's just a really, really cool, interesting vibe, a very weird vibe for that point in the 90s. And there's so many really good songs on there. I wish that the band would have continued. So those are probably my top three.
Yeah, and like I fully support that because late 90s, turn of the century into early 2000s is like the sweet spot for music for me. That's when I was in middle school. I was really kind of like on this self-discovery. So I'm absolutely here for that. I mean, like there are so many 90s rock is such a wide open place. Like you have The Freshman by the Verve Pipe is such a haunting song. But it's like you have to listen to it. Bittersweet Symphony and everything that came attached to that song is still a great song no matter what. Like there's so much good stuff there. I'm a TRL kid, man. What can I say? And
woo! That's the thing I remember most from TRL.
Back when MTV was actually doing what they were supposed to be doing. And kind of like where we had like this influx. Yeah. And so like in the midst of like the Britney Spears craze, Christina Aguilera, the boy bands, Backstreet Boys for life. And you would have a song like Freak on a Leash being number one over all the boy bands and all the girly pop stuff, which I don't discriminate on genre. Like if you like pop music, I love that for you. If you like, I love all kinds of music. I apparently I'd never told this before today, but like I'm a karaoke kid. I love singing. It's one of my favorite things to do. Anything that I can sing out loud is good for me. I come from a family of singers. Like it's almost like hereditary. My grandfather was a small time recording artist. And so I just love it. And seeing like Freak on a Leash, which is like such a great song and such an innovative music video. I love late 90s, early 2000s music.
Yeah, it's funny too because I don't really, as you said, discriminate against a particular musical style, although I do struggle the most probably connecting with country music because of where I grew up. There's just no country music there. But I'm kind of all over the place, like I will listen to like, jazz music from the 30s and doo-wop from the 50s and you just, if the song speaks to me or connects with me in some way, then it's good to me, even if it's from somebody I might not usually listen to, or if it's a boy band or pop music or rock music or whatever it might be. If it connects with me on some level, then it's good by me, and I don't really care what genre it belongs to or who performs it, as long as they perform it well. So I'm kind of all over the place when it comes to music.
It's funny that you say that because my grandfather was a country singer, so that's in my blood too. So if you're struggling to connect with country artists, I know that some of it can be a mixed bag, especially the area that we live in. But let me turn you on to Chris Stapleton. That guy, I don't know. You probably didn't watch the Super Bowl. That was stupid of me.
I did not.
he sang the national anthem, and he has. Listen, I'm easy to please. He has a very bluesy voice, and so like he kind of transcends the genre of country. He's done collaborations with different artists from different genres. So Chris Stapleton is a name that you need to check out, my friend.
I will try. I will try. That's all I can promise. Alrighty, folks, there you have it. What are your favorite bands, and who would you, among the pantheon of comic book characters, put into a band? Find us on social media, on Twitter and Instagram at Nerd Byword, and individually at That Nerd Dave and at That Nerd Chris, and we would love to hear what your thoughts are. Stick around after this break. We will have some new nerd commendations. All right, folks, welcome back. It's time for... Yes, it's time for Nerd Commendations. Chris, what are you nerd commending this week to our listeners?
Oh, dude, I knew that this book was made specifically for me, but I don't know why I put off reading it for so long. Maybe because I wanted to binge it like I did on DC Universe Infinite. But Dark Knights of Steel, oh, it's so good. It's so good. It's everything that I wanted it to be. Like maybe the one reason why I was holding out was like, okay, it seems kind of gimmicky. They're just trying to go for like the popularity of fantasy, like Game of Thrones or Lord of the Rings. But it actually absolutely delivers. You know, you got Tom Taylor writing, Yasmin Putri, just doing such great work with art. And it's so unique in a story. Like, it's so cool to kind of, and I know that DC is infamous for this, but, you know, as a newcomer to DC, like playing in this Elseworlds alt reality and just throwing stuff at the wall and like seeing what sticks. Now, I know, spoilers, there's an evil Superman trope that shows up a little bit, so that's a little bit of a tisk tisk, Thomas. But everything else about this is 5 stars out of 5 stars from me. The coolest thing that they've done with it is the Green Man. And it's like this hybrid combination. It's Lex Luthor, who is dismissed from the royal court. He's like also kind of the Joker, and he also has kryptonite, and he also has a ring of power. It's so cool. It's like a hybrid character. It's so innovative. It's so big picture. I absolutely love it. And then kind of the twist that they did with Bruce Wayne, I'm not going to give it away, but it's so cool and innovative. I've got a couple issues that I'm behind on, but I've read, I think, the first 9. I think it's a 12-issue series. I'm pretty sure it was delayed. But I absolutely love it. It tickles all my fancies of fantasy, superhero comics. Poison Ivy is really innovative and creatively done. I just really, really love this series, and it's like jaw-dropping cliffhangers on the last page of each issue. It's really, really good. So Dark Knights of Steel, check it out. DC Universe Infinite. I believe the first 9 issues are on there.
Yeah, so I read, I think, the first 3 of this, and then I kind of fell off the wagon because there's so much other stuff to read. I have become incredibly bad at reading a book month to month, to be honest with you. It seems like I'll read some, and then I just like forget about it for 6 months, and I'm like, oh, look, there's the series. There's 6 more issues to read. But like incrementally reading month to month, I'm getting worse and worse at the older I get, it feels like. So I'm going to have to go back to this because I remember vividly really, really enjoying the dynamic between the Superman and the Batman characters, and then like I think Supergirl and Wonder Woman are in a relationship or something, and that was really cool how they were playing that off. And then there was some kind of twist with Alfred or something that I really liked. So I think I need to get back into this because I remember really liking the writing, and it kind of is fascinating to me that they say this is like Game of Thrones meets superhero comics, because I have struggled over and over again to connect with Game of Thrones.
Oh,
this clicked with me immediately.
Oh, man. Yep.
This,
just wait till
this clicked.
But listen, listen, Mister. You need to wait till the second season. Nah, damn it! You have told me to wait till the second season on about 15 different shows. I'm telling you the same thing with Game of Thrones. It is very much the same.
It just, it's the same reason why. Little detour, but it's the same reason why I've not actually watched the Last of Us TV show yet. It's just there is something really unpleasant about a story where you have nobody to root for, and everybody's kind of a bad guy, and nobody's innocent, and everybody has to go to a certain extent bad. It's that. That's a good point. It's that thing that Superman says in Batman v Superman that always irks me when he says, nobody stays innocent in this world. And I'm like, you're Superman, dude. Like, that to me, having that one character that you can root for, that's really the, if not a good person, at least is trying to be a good person, isn't in for me. Having an imperfect character that tries to be good, but for me, like the first few Game of Thrones I watched like the first 2 or 3 episodes, and everything felt just really unpleasant. And then I played The Last of Us, and everything was so unpleasant, and I'm like, it's not that I need everything sugar coated, but I just want a character that I can latch onto as the good person, the one I want to root for. If there's nobody to root for, then I usually struggle finding an in. So I guess that's my problem.
I have held off on The Last of Us for that very same reason, so I totally get where you're coming from. But I promise you that there are characters that you can cling to in Game of Thrones as you move along. And here in the first 3 episodes, You've got Tyrion that you probably liked, and then that was about it.
Pretty much.
But and Peter Dinklage should have the world at his feet at this point. But
agreed.
I will say, and this I'm going to be completely 100% honest with you. This is actual words from George R.R. Martin. He said, I'm going to take the characters that you love the most, and they're going to do the worst possible thing. And I'm going to take the worst possible characters and make them do the best possible thing. So he loves playing with that dynamic. However, I will say, and I was struggled with that on House of the Dragon season 1, particularly with that, because I was just like, oh, I love this character. What the F did they just do? And then like, I hate this character. Oh, that was an awesome thing that they did. But I promise you that there are characters that you will put your whole fandom and heart behind in Game of Thrones. Just don't watch the second half of the last season.
Yeah, I hear that a lot.
Okay. Do we need to check you into nostalgia rehab, mein Freund?
I don't care. Check me in. I'll live there. Here lately, that's the best stuff I've been getting a hold of. That Gargoyles comic book that's running at Dynamite right now is fire. And it's very cool that Dynamite is apparently in some kind of Disney partnership right now, because they're also doing a new Darkwing Duck book. And I have to say, it's amazing. It's all ages, and is aiming for the same kind of audience as the original. So it's fun for kids and fun for adults. And it really, really is. It's spot on. It so perfectly captures the tone and the dynamic of the show. Amanda Dybert is doing the writing, and she has just perfectly Darkwing Duck's voice down. Carlo Lauro, I think, did the art so far. I'm sure they're going to rotate eventually, because these books tend to do that. But the look is so perfectly captured from the cartoon as well. It feels like you're reading sort of lost episodes from the original Darkwing Duck cartoon. And the recent DuckTales remake, they did like a whole Darkwing Duck subplot story in a few episodes, and that just really reawakened like my love for this character. This he thinks he's so much cooler than he actually is. He thinks he's so much more capable than he actually is, but he still somehow pulls it off in the end. And I absolutely love the dynamic he has with his adopted daughter, with Goslin. I think that is so. It's so rare for a cartoon in particular to lean into like adopted parenthood role the way they do here, and it works so well. It worked so well in the cartoon. So Darkwing Duck from Dynamite, I think they've had 2 or 3 issues so far. It's totally worth picking up if you like the original cartoon. If you've never seen the original cartoon, you need to get off your butt and watch it, because it's hilarious. And on top of that, I think it's new reader friendly enough that you can probably get into the comic book and appreciate it as the superhero, particularly probably Batman parody that it actually is. So it's really, really fun. And another win for Dynamite, who just really knock it out of the park on licensed books.
Listen, Dynamite might be that diamond in the rough that we don't get enough credit to. I will sing the praises of those Zorro comics that I nerd commended a few months back to the cows come home. And then I also am interested in checking out the Red Sonja stuff, especially with that movie still in development. I know they've had some casting shakeups with schedules and whatnot, but that's a character that peripherally I'm very interested in. And no, it's not because of the metal bikini. It might be my power girl.
No, I'm going to tell you right now that I'm right there with you, because the Red Sonja books from Dynamite have been, really, really some of those strong across the board. Gail Simone had a run on it that was absolutely ridiculous. Yeah, so and that's not the only good run, actually. There's a lot of really good creators that come and go through that book, and they're not all in the same continuity. They kind of reset frequently and like try different things with the character, but a lot of the Red Sonja books are really strong.
It's really funny, because Darkwing Duck, all I remember really is number one, Let's Get Dangerous, and that I loved it as a kid. I haven't revisited that since I was a child, so it might be high time to do that. But just like kind of taking a back seat to this and peripherally speaking, Disney truly could just make us love anything, because they really said in the 90s, you know what, we're going to get these kids to love ducks everywhere. All the ducks, and you will love them.
and we did. Let's be honest, we truly did.
Even Scrooge, even the worst of them, we loved him.
No, it's true. Alrighty, folks, there you have it. This was a new episode of the Nerd Byword podcast. If you like what you just heard, find us on your favorite podcasting platform. Give us a rating, a review, and of course, subscribe so you never miss an episode. We are available on all the podcasting platforms, and of course, on our very own spiffy website, nerdbyword.com.
Yeah, thanks so much for riding along with us, guys. And if you have ideas for episodes, if you have commentary, if you would like to share, as Dave said before, who would make your band, what the name of your band would be, I think we're going to put our brains together now that after we have some time, and we'll come up with some names for our band. But please be sure to share that info with us on Twitter and Instagram at Nerd Byword, or individually that Nerd Dave, that Nerd Chris. Also hit the link in the bio if you want to get some cool merch, or if you want to slide into our Discord and nerd out with us all the day long. And as always, stay well and stay nerdy, friends.
The Nerd Byword is written and produced by Kris and Dave, two nerds with a love of all things pop culture. The podcast features music by Al Jimenez, with additional drops composed by Joe Biondi. Our show art is by Ashery Design. Find us at nerdbyword.com and wherever podcasts are available.